Is the movie The Contractor any good? I actually like it. Let me clarify. It's not going to be everyone's favorite movie of all time or even of the year, but it is a good way to pass the time. It is a decent movie, in my humble Mexican opinion. The main reason that it's a slightly above average movie to me is that it touches on some subjects that I think will resonate with a lot of people, especially Americans. But the reason that it's not an amazing movie is that it doesn't really go too deep into any of these subjects. Before I expand on these concepts, let's go over the main plot. Spoiler alert, Chris Pine is an American Marine. I think he's a Marine, he's some kind of soldier. Anyway, he served in Iraq and Afghanistan, but he suffered a really bad knee injury, and the only way that he can continue doing soldier type activities is by shooting himself with steroids or some type of medication. And it's all fine and dandy until there's a new guy in charge of Chris Pine's unit and they run random drug tests. Chris gets popped for dope, he gets fired and loses his pension, which already wasn't much to begin with. He's got a wife, a kid, and a rundown house with a hole in the roof. Debt collectors are harassing him and his wife for payment. He's got a family to feed, and he's very, very desperate for money. So, in this desperation, his soldier buddy, who I'm going to call Whiskey Ginger, offers him work as a private contractor. It pays a lot more than what soldiers are making, but it's some shady espionage type shit that's supposed to be defending America or serving American interests in some kind of way. So they go to work for Jack Bauer from the show 24, who has super top secret black ops work that he's fulfilling for the Department of Justice or something like that. They get sent to Berlin, Germany, where their mission is to compromise the work of a Syrian born scientist that they were told is working on some terrorist plot and has ties to Al Qaeda. They smoke the scientist, but they find out that he was actually working on the cure for H1N1. Throughout the course of the mission, Chris Pine and Whiskey Ginger get split up. Each one is led to believe that the other one is dead. Jack Bauer from 24 also thinks Chris died during the mission. Once Jack Bauer from 24 finds out that Chris is still alive, he sends a quote extraction team to bring him back home, but it turns out they're actually sent to kill Chris Pine. Chris somehow miraculously makes it back home. He links up with Whiskey Ginger and they team up to kill Jack Bauer from 24, which they have to do because if Jack Bauer finds out that Chris Pine is still alive, and especially in the United States, then he would get him and his family killed since Chris Pine is seen as a loose end, aka loose lips, sink ships, that kind of thing. He knows too much. They kill Jack Bauer from 24. Whiskey Ginger dies in the process. Chris Pine has this super cheesy callback moment where he finds his kid, calls his name, effectively returning to his life, which he always vowed to do since when he was a kid and his dad came out of the military service. He kind of disappeared on him, never to return. So it was this really cheesy, shed a tear type of moment. The end. Okay, so if you're into this movie strictly for the action, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're gonna get a mean case of blue balls. There is action, but the action doesn't start till at least halfway through the movie, or maybe even later than that. The buildup for him to get to Germany is gonna take a while, but when the action does start, it is pretty good. There was one scene where a female coworker of Chris Pine gets shot, and it's the fakest, most CGI amateur looking blood squirting that I've ever seen in my life. But besides that, the action I have to say was pretty good. My only complaints about the action scenes is that there could have been more of them, and you don't get your first taste of it till pretty late in the movie if you're the type of movie watcher that wants to see action up front. I personally didn't mind the build-up, and I felt like it did a good job at creating the foundation for the rest of the movie. But I'm not an expert movie critic. I'm just some asshole on YouTube. Never forget that. Okay, so here's what I actually like about the movie. In general, the things that make movies and shows good isn't the crazy over the top things that happen in them. It's the metaphors and the deep existential concepts that make them hit a nerve for the viewer, that makes it relatable and makes the viewer think about parts of their own life that may parallel what they see on the screen. The Contractor does this a few times in a few ways. First is the concept of feeling abandoned, being left high and dry, being made to feel like you're disposable or like you just got used and you don't matter to someone or something that you thought you did matter to. First off, as a consequence of the steroids that he's taking for his messed up knee, the military and to a larger extent the country, which Chris Pine has dedicated his entire life to, has basically told him to go fuck himself and took away his pension, leaving Chris to feel like the American flag itself is telling him, we used you for what we need you for. I know we promised you some sort of financial security in your future. We renege on those promises and we owe you nothing. And we will do nothing for you going forward. This hit home for me. I'm not a veteran and I don't have any family or friends who are veterans, but even I can take a 2-minute drive to my nearest freeway exit and find a homeless man with a sign that says, homeless veteran, need help, God bless, please give me $1 or something like that. If you live in a major city in America, you know that a lot of veterans or people who claim to be veterans make up a good chunk of the homeless population, and that's incredibly sad. I can go further and make an analogy to this when I look at my experience working at countless jobs that I've had over the course of my life. When I was a teenager, I read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and as I became an adult, I saw Robert Kiyosaki's words jump off the page and come to life right in front of my eyes. The name of the game in all relationships is leverage, and when you work a regular 9 to 5 job, the employer has all of it, all of the leverage. They have human resources departments whose sole purpose is to bring in fresh, new people to come in and replace the ones who are eventually going to leave or get fired. They leave because they're fed up, disillusioned, and feel like they're getting a raw deal. That's no problem for the employer because, quote, everyone is replaceable. That's actually what my boss told me to my face at an old job I had. I liked the job starting out, but later me and my boss began to argue about little things here and there until it became clear that you either comply with every demand they make or you can go fuck right off. It's extremely disheartening to feel like you're disposable. And when I saw the military do Chris Pine like that, I felt that. But the military isn't the only organization that, quote, disposed themselves of Chris. Jack Bauer from 24 and his little Black Swan contractor group also lied to Whiskey Ginger after he got separated from Chris and told him that Chris died. When in reality, Chris wasn't dead, but just missing. And as soon as Chris popped back up on the radar, Jack Bauer from 24 would use a hit squad against him. To make this even more dirty, there's a scene where Chris Pine finally gets the better of the men who were trying to kill him. As the assassin was taking his final breaths, he let Chris Pine know that he's also an American veteran and that he was also told the same lie by 24's Jack Bauer that they wouldn't be killing anybody and that they would strictly be running reconnaissance. The assassin claims he got new orders, a last minute change of plans where he was to kill Chris Pine. Funny how Chris Pine was also, quote, just running reconnaissance on the Syrian scientist until he got last minute orders to execute him as well. So, what you have here is disposable pieces taking out other disposable pieces after they've finished being useful, with no concern for the fact that these men are fellow Americans and have families. Americans killing other Americans, all working for the same company in a foreign country, operating on limited information. That's very dirty and it's a very naughty thing to do in Hollywood. When it comes to these kind of movies, Hollywood almost always does this thing I really hate where they just paint America as the super good, super brave, super justified, and virtuous side, and a dehumanized boogeyman type of enemy. Usually a Russian, a Chinese, or a Middle Eastern person or group. There's a clear good guy, America, and a clear bad guy. I'm a proud American and I love my country, but this just doesn't make for an interesting movie. The Contractor deserves to get its props because it goes against this cheesy trope of a clear good guy and a clear bad guy. The biggest example of this in the movie is the scientist. The briefing that was given before Chris goes on the mission leads him to believe that the scientist is a terrorist sleeper cell. But as Chris spies on the super evil, super bad Syrian born scientist working for Al Qaeda, Chris finds out that he has a wife and kids who he loves very dearly. In the process of retrieving some top secret data, Chris is able to speak with the scientist's wife and son, and the truth comes out. The scientist wasn't in any way a terrorist, and his family are as normal as can be. The kid is just a regular, innocent kid. The wife is a loving wife and mother who's naturally distraught by her husband's recent loss and the fact that the whole time she's on screen, she's basically being robbed by Chris. I can go even deeper with the analogies by reminding all of you that America and the West have been trying to overthrow the government in Syria for the better part of a decade. Syria is a sovereign country which hasn't done anything to us, but we're still over there funding and arming ISIS fighters, freedom fighters, to overthrow Bashar al Assad. But y'all are not ready to have that conversation, and this is not the video for that. Stay woke, bitch. Anyway, I think it's really cool how these unfolding series of events force Chris to question his morality and his actions. Contrast the way Chris deals with this with the way Whiskey Ginger deals with it. He basically shrugs it off and says, fuck it, I got a family to take care of, and it is what it is. That's how I think most of us are, especially in this country. For example, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Oh my god, can you believe this? Vladimir Putin is a fucking monster. He's so evil. He came straight out of the devil's ballsack, right? Excuse me, but is anybody looking at the stats? Yes, war is always horrific no matter what, and it is heartbreaking that many people have died and will continue to die in Ukraine. But if invading countries was a sport, Russia would be playing college ball and the US would be in the NBA. Iraq, Syria, Libya, Afghanistan, Venezuela. Let me repeat. I am proud to be an American and I love America, but let's call a spade a spade. Life is not black and white. Good and evil exists within each of us all over the world. More than anything, I like this movie for the fact that it was able to take us into the gray, where things are more complicated. It's easy for Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad to do this because they have season after season to build up the characters and build up the world around them. But the Contractor did this in an hour and 43 minutes. The biggest criticism that I see from other reviews is that it touched on certain subjects, but it didn't go too deep into any one of them. While I do agree with this sentiment somewhat, I would argue that it doesn't have to go too deep into it because it's an hour and 40 fucking 3 minutes long. What did you expect? I mean, half the movie is building up Chris Pine up to be your average blue collar, apple pie, all American soldier who loves his family, and then the other half of the movie is spent on turning his world upside down. I'll say it again. I liked the movie. It was a good enough movie for me. There are definitely worse ways to spend an hour and 43 minutes of your life. There's even a message or a lesson that I think can be pulled from this movie. If something's happening that is considered normal, invading other countries that didn't do shit to us, or if something is happening that is to our benefit, does that make it right? Does that make it good? Can something be good that benefits us at the expense of the lives of countless others? Am I making the world a better place, or is that just what I tell myself to sleep at night? So that's my review of The Contractor. Do I recommend this movie? Should you watch this movie? Well, if you have time to kill, yeah, it's cool, but it's not cool. You know what I mean? It's good enough. Like I said, this by no means is the worst way to spend an hour and 43 minutes of your life. There's much shittier stuff out there, but if you were to pass away without ever having watched this movie, it wouldn't exactly be considered a tragedy, if that makes sense. If you fuck with me, like this video. If you don't fuck with me, dislike this video. Regardless whether you fuck with me or not, leave a comment because I actually do want to know what you think, and I'll probably respond to you because I'm not a big YouTuber. And if you, for some strange reason, would like to hear more from a random Mexican dude making weird videos and putting them on the internet, subscribe to Funivision and hit the notification bell. And remember, that Coke ain't gonna sniff itself. Appreciate y'all.